So this content creation thing has been a really interesting experience so far. And it's been a really good reminder that nothing's going to be perfect. This takes time. It'll be a transition just in growing, not just with technical skills, but also something like the courage to create something and then commit to it by posting. So even the video you're just about to watch, I think I took like 5 takes to go through it, and it's like 8 to 10 minutes each, and it's just eating up all this time. And then ultimately, it's just like you got to post something. And yeah, it was just a good reminder that all of us are just going to have to be vulnerable and brave to some degree when it comes to creating stuff for our students, and just that's just going to be part of the experience. So just really trying to encourage you here, just to go for it, finish the thing, get it off your plate, and move on. This will be a good learning experience in that sense for all of us. So it's not just about developing technical skill, but it's also about developing some kind of thick skin. And yeah, that's just growth. So enjoy the video. Hey friends, it's Scott here, and in this video I want to think about building interaction into an online course. And I think it's really useful to broaden the definition, or a definition, an understanding of interaction, to include really interaction of all kinds, including interaction between two individuals. And that seems to be, at least bringing about different types of interaction, seems to be one of the greater challenges when it comes to designing an online course. The thing is, it's definitely possible. I'll have a couple of examples of doing that, but these will be, I think, fairly obvious. I think what I would like to say is the value here is really trying to think about interaction and dialogue in a much broader way, so you can build in layers of dialogue and interaction over time, and certainly beyond two individuals or two separate minds. Actually, there's a book chapter this is in the book Writing Without Teachers that I found really valuable, and that's from Peter Elbow. This is chapter 3, and he talks about cooking as a metaphor for writing. So I included this in a writing course that a friend and I co-taught, and this is where the examples I'm going to share are coming from, is this writing course. So anyway, that's a useful chapter for any writing teachers, people interested in thinking about dialogue and interaction in a meaningful way, at least as it applies to your online courses. So something really common when it comes to an online course is, of course, setting up the course content. So this might be your little lecture portion. We all know that it's valuable to introduce or to set up or to facilitate somebody's approach to course content. There is always the option of just dropping it on the student and hoping that they can manage it. But in this case, I was introducing a transition between two pieces of writing and trying to help students think about what it meant to take a position. And first of all, by thinking about the game of chess and watching this guy play. So we're joining him in the middle of a 3-minute game. So he's really rushed, and he's actually kind of funny because he's commentating as he goes, and he's like actually quite good, but he sort of knows he's really good. So let's just think about what it means to take a position in relation to this game of chess. So there's quite a bit of value to this exercise. I think in many ways it's obvious, but I want to point out this has kind of 2 layers of interaction or dialogue. The first is, the instructor with the course content. So they create a kind of loop of interaction. But then, of course, there's the interactive loop between that first one, the instructor and the content, and then the imagined student. So it's just by resisting, wanting to just post some course content and instead setting up or introducing it by recording a video, that we start to see there's a lot of value to building in layers of dialogue. Well, okay, so another common practice that my co-teacher and I for this writing course we took up was to start posting weekly intros. The first time we taught the class, we didn't do this, and so it ended up being way more confusing for students as they took on the readings themselves without very much introduction at all. So what we started to do was, instead of one of us introducing the reading, and then maybe another segment would be the other instructor doing something else, introducing something else, we decided to have real conversation about the readings. So we had both read what it was that we assigned the students, and then we interacted over it, thinking of examples and sometimes agreeing and disagreeing, and anyway, having real dialogue, meaning we were both open to learning from each other and potentially even shifting our positions and opinions. So this is just one little example
Oh, Lincoln. Okay.
where I brought in an ad. I thought of it in our
I think I saw
conversation.
this.
This is a kind of example
I'm
of
sure.
a
Actually, I don't have a
company.
TV at home, so
This one is this one
I
is
don't have access to any ad except for when I'm watching YouTube videos. There's like ad in the beginning.
anyway. He's just like handsome and sweaty and like greasy and just like
So just an
hanging out in the
example
car. I haven't seen this one yet,
of
but anyway, they're trying to build an association, right? And
just an example that I thought the students could relate to based on the reading. So what's really great about this is, of course, now we're able to model the kind of dialogue and the kind of interaction with ideas by interacting with each other that we hope the students, the kind of posture the students can bring to the course and to the course content. So actual, real conversation that involves, the tangents and the laughing and the misunderstandings. I mean, being able to demonstrate that for students is really awesome. And by the way, it does seem to me that students, because of the things that they consume already, they might be used to like reaction videos, and they might be used to podcasts and maybe longer form conversations because of the things they watch on YouTube or whatever. So it actually, yes, it could be seen as something like a waste of time to have a conversation about this. You might be able to include it as something like bonus content, but I really encourage you to experiment with this, and it doesn't have to be with another like staff member or teacher. It could be with just another peer, or it could be with a student. You could just recruit a student or two to have some conversation with you, and you have a Q&A and you have some nice interaction, and then that would be the thing you post for the other students to consume. So anyway, that's more of the type of dialogue or interaction that we might hope for, or at least we recognize, as being between two minds. But it's also, there's the really common way, the discussion board approach, of course. I really like using Google Docs for comments. This ends up being, this is a part of our peer review process. This is typical stuff for an online course, and this ended up being really superficial, honestly. So this even took some facilitation. So occasionally I would jump in and comment on somebody's comment. Could you please offer something more constructive or productive here? But then there is some potential for students to actually engage in real dialogue, a back and forth thing. Although a lot of times this was just unidirectional. It's something to mentor. It's something that you'll have to train your students into. So allow this thing to develop over time, where you're very intentional up front about setting expectations for the kind of interaction that you would like to see, and then providing positive feedback and negative feedback when you see or don't see what you expect. So yeah, this will take a transition time and period for your students, as well as yourself. It'll take setting some explicit expectations, and then really keeping students accountable. So anyway, there were just really lots of ways, lots of layers. Again, one of the things is to think about how dialogue can be, or how interaction can be, a person interacting with themselves or their past self. So this is the whole writing process that's so common now, where you have outlining and then the first draft, second draft, and final draft. This is all about you producing a version of yourself or of your ideas that you can then interact with. So it's really defensible to think about structuring a course in this way, because we know that dialogue and interaction are so valuable, but they don't have to be face to face. They don't have to be one mind to another. They can actually include all of these other types of dialogue, including bringing in examples and again, metaphors and things that I think Peter Elwood does a really nice job of introducing. Please share some ways that you have found to interact, or ways that you expect to be able to interact with your students. Certainly include them in the comments. And then let's make this a dialogue. What questions do you have, and what future videos would you like to see? Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.